Alright, so let's go over lockpicking. Now, lockpicking inside of the toolkit has two different types. The first type is going to be very similar to the type you would see in Skyrim. This is tension lockpicking. So here I can interact with a chest, and if I move the mouse left and right, you can see I can move the pick around, and then if I hold down D, that is going to turn the lock. Now, if the pick is not in the right position, it is going to wiggle the lock, and if I keep doing it, it is going to break the pick and will be kicked out. But if I place the pick in the right direction, or roughly the right direction, it's going to turn the lock. We can then adjust it to find the right spot. And if it's in the right spot, one more time, let's do it down here. There we go. It opens up and we can open the crate. There's also going to be 4 different difficulties: easy, medium, hard, and expert. So easy is going to be very easy pretty much. Most of the time it's going to be in roughly the right spot. There we go, and you get a lot of leeway as well with the pick. Whereas something like expert is going to be a bit trickier. You can see here, finding that sweet spot is going to be a lot trickier, and the pick is going to break a lot quicker. So we need to find the sweet spot here, and there we go. Now, with lockpicking, you probably want to have some limitation for the player. So here, as you can see, we can set it up so that this lockpick is only going to be enabled if the player is holding a lockpick in their hand. So if I pick up this lockpicking item, I can then enable this. And if I break the lockpick, for example, if I go ahead and break it, it will be removed from my hand. So it's sort of like a one-time use thing there. Alternatively, we can also set it up so that we might require an item in our inventory. So this chest right here requires a lockpicking kit, so I can pick that up, open my inventory, and here it is. Whoops, let me just adjust my screen size here. There we go. Yep, so you can see the inventory, we have the lockpicking kit here. So now I can open up this lock or give it a go. And there we go. Okay, now let's jump over to look at the pin lockpicking. So the pin lockpicking, it's pretty much in a very similar scene. This is the sort of lockpicking you might see in the Elder Scrolls Online. And this involves a number of different pins. You can move the mouse to adjust which pin you're currently focusing on. And then if you hold down, you'll notice that I'll push the pin down and it'll eventually begin to wiggle, as you can see here. Well, the objective is to let go the moment the pin begins wiggling to set it. There we go, it begins to wiggle, I let go, I set it. Wiggle, let go, and once you do that for all the pins, it is going to unlock. And if you hold a pin down for too long while it's wiggling, the pick will break. Like before, we have 4 different difficulties. Easy should be a pretty straightforward one to go through. You don't really need that much of a good reaction speed. You should be able to go through it pretty quickly. Whereas something that is expert is going to be a lot harder. Okay, watch how quickly this pin breaks. Okay, it breaks very quickly, so you need to be quite on the tip of your toes to get this done, okay? And of course, you can look behind harder things or more valuable things behind harder locks, okay? So you really need to have good reaction times to unlock the expert difficulty. And like before, you can have it so you need a lockpicking kit to open this one, as you can see here, or a pick-upable item to unlock this one here. Now, inside of the lockpicking game, this, as you can see, uses the inspect system. So right-clicking will exit out of that. And let's have a look at how this is set up more precisely. So, inside of your scene right here, you are going to want to add one of the lockpicking controllers. So you see here, I have the lockpicking controller _ pin. And if we go to our systems controllers folder, you'll see we have a pin and a tension controller right here. Simply drag one of those into your scene and it is going to be set up like that. Do note though, you can only have one type of lockpicking in a scene. You cannot have both mixing together, so choose between pin or tension. Also, what's required is going to be the inspect controller because in order to open up this lockpicking and use it, it opens it up via inspecting the lockpicking minigame. So we do have a video going over the inspect controller, or check out the documentation. Now, let's have a look at this lockpicking controller itself. As a child, it has the actual lockpicking object, which is going to be inspected. And if I enable it, you can see this is what it looks like right here. I'm going to move it over there. There we go. This is essentially an inspectable object, which when inspected is going to have the lockpicking perform. Okay, now you can see here under pin lockpicking component, we can define all the different pins as well as the difficulties. Okay, for the most part, just leave all of this stuff as is. If you want a deeper understanding of what these properties are, simply hover over them or check out the online documentation. Okay, the difficulties, on the other hand, is something you are probably going to want to tweak, so feel free to go through and modify these settings. Also, for the sounds, you can apply those sounds here as well. Now, the exact same thing is going to be for the tension lockpick. So if I open that up, you'll see here we have a tension lockpicking component, which again has difficulties, and it also has a little visual showing how large the sweet spot and the tolerance angles are, so you can adjust those here as well as the properties, which, like I mentioned before, unless you're changing the models, you don't really need to touch any of these, okay? They are set up pretty precisely. Now, how do we actually trigger a lockpicking event? Well, if we select this chest right here, you'll see it has a door component. Now, on this door component, if we go down to the unlocking section, I have enabled start locked, so this door, this little hatch, is going to remain locked at the start, and I've enabled can open with lockpicking. This is going to require a lockpickable component, and we have referenced it here. And down inside the lockpickable, we can determine the difficulty of the lockpicking. So right now it is set to easy. We can choose the difficulty right here. We also have a require unlock means. This means we have something that the player needs in order to unlock it. For example, with this crate over here, which requires the pick-upable, you'll see down here, the require unlock means is enabled, and the unlock means type is set to pick-upable, and we have linked it here. So we can only attempt to unlock this chest if the player is holding this object. We also enabled consume means, which means when the lockpicking has failed, it will be destroyed. But you can change that. You can change it to fail or attempt. Attempt means that the pick-upable will be destroyed when they begin lockpicking, and fail means it will be destroyed when they fail at the lockpick. Likewise, for this one over here, this instead uses the unlock means of item data. So it is going to check to see if the player has a lockpicking kit in their inventory, and if so, only then can they attempt to unlock this door. And also consume means for this one has been disabled, so this is going to give the player infinite chances to unlock this as long as they have the item in their inventory. Alternatively, you can also use the third option here, which is stat, and this is going to use player stats instead of item data or pick-upable. Okay, so that is basically how lockpicking is constructed. Let's now jump over to our example scene and have a look at how we can set this up. So here we are inside of our example scene. I've gone ahead and scrapped everything except for a door right here. So inside of the toolkit manager, you can see we have just our basic components here as well as the crosshair controller. So if I press play, we should be able to walk up to this door and open it up. Okay, but what we want to do is lock this door behind lockpicking. So how do we do that? Well, we need to add two new systems. Let's go over to our systems controllers folder and drag in one of our lockpickings here. So I'm going to drag in the pin lockpicking, make that a child of the manager. And we also need our inspect controller because the actual lockpicking screen is done via the inspect system. Now, we're going to go through setting up the inspect controller as we've done previously. Essentially, we need to select the interaction controller, go to inspecting, find in scene, then we need to select our player's main camera and add the overlay camera to their stack. And there we go, that is all set up now. What we can then do is go over to our door and set it up so that it requires to be unlocked via lockpicking. So down here in unlocking, I'm going to enable start locked. That's going to prevent the player from opening the door. Then I'm going to enable can open with lockpicking. Now, it's going to require a lockpickable component, so I can click create new, and that's going to create a new one down here. We can then define the difficulty. I'm going to set this to be medium, and we are not going to require an unlock means as of now, okay? If you want to make it so the player needs a certain item, you can define that down here, but for now, I'm just going to disable that so we can attempt to unlock it anytime. Now, if we press play and walk up to the door, we should see that we can open up the pin lockpicking and attempt that here. So let's see if it works. And there we go. And now the door is open. So there we go. That is how we can set up lockpicking inside of the toolkit.